and Kaos. A deadbeat's journey through the underground. Interviews, music, punk, community. Attitude. Sunday nights, 10 p.m. to 12. CRCFM 102.9.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Bitsy. I'm in The Last Pop Stars along with Paul and Pete Holiday. Also in the Lee Harveys, but this is a track off an EP we just recently recorded in Pilgrim Studios with Pete Holiday, and it's called Baby Lizard. Lizard on the fly screen. The TV's on and the cat's been. It's hot outside on the pavement. Baby lizard on the fly screen. Stuck in my room with no aircon. Plug in the move, turn the keys on. Roll my eyes at the ceiling. Baby lizard on the fly screen. On the fly screen, crawling around like a has-been. Sunshine beaming down the asphalt. Baby lizard on the fly screen. Tears are streaming down your eyes now. The sound of screaming fills the room now. Baby lizard on the fly screen. Baby lizard on the fly screen. The lights are on, but there's no one home. Quit talking on the telephone. Baby lizard on the fly screen. The TV's on and the cat's been. It's hot outside on the pavement. Baby lizard on the fly screen. Tears are streaming down your face now. The sound of screaming fills the room now. Baby lizard on the fly screen. Baby lizard on the fly screen.
Bitsy, a bit of a time since you were on the program last. You were here with about the Harveys. So tell me about The Last Pop Stars. When did that start off, and what's the name about?
The Last Pop Stars, I like the poppier end of punk, always have. That's why I was a big Radiators fan. Enemies, in my opinion, one of their singles being the best
45 that ever came out of Ireland. Any of you kids that might be watching this, a 45 is what was known as a miniature vinyl record, which you can now get in a museum anywhere in your town. So the other band, I'm in, the Lee Harveys, were on the road for 15 years, never took a break, gigged quite an awful lot here and abroad. And it got to the stage where I myself personally was getting bored with it. And also there was some personal stuff in the background with ill health in the extended family, so I couldn't really commit. And then when I spoke to the rest of the guys, they were more or less in agreement. Yeah, let's just take a break. So as a result of that, Peter and Tony are now uh, in the backing band for Molly Points.
That's right. I saw them at the
And
Gideon Nights.
yeah,
Mhm.
and as a result of that as well, they've got the gig now in the Electric Picnic, which is great for them. Congratulations. So they've been gigging away incessantly. And as we were talking, Noel, just before we come on, started the show, I think it's really fucking healthy that rather than just say, fuck this, let's break the bands break it up. I mean, most bands break up because they don't get on with each other. We get on great,
Yeah.
and we've a good thing going. It's a good steady lineup, plenty of ideas, but it just got a bit stayed. And I think we all, when we had a good discussion about it, we all more or less agreed, yeah, let's just take a break and let's see what happens. So as a result, then I don't know the other songs written,
Yeah, because there was
and I
talk of an
wanted to
album or
record
something.
them.
There was talk of a new album and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there will be a Harvey's album coming out. We're going into rehearsals after the Electric Picnic, and to record an album, purely to record an album, and going to start gigging again in the new year.
Yeah.
But I recorded an EP, as I said earlier, with Pete Holiday. Pete's a genius, plays the fucking Hammond's organ and everything on it, bass,
Well, he's
guitar,
well
backing
respected and
vocals.
well
Like the
known, I
guys,
suppose. He's well known for that. He has his own
he's a
studio
great
as well, doesn't
producer.
he? He has his own bit of a studio as well.
Great producer, yeah. Pilgrim Studios, yeah.
Yeah,
Lovely little studio.
yeah.
I mean, Pete's been producing and making records for years, and obviously with his current band, the Trouble Pilgrims. But
I believe
because I
he
like
turns
pop
up.
music,
I believe he turns up on several albums of other bands, like throwing in a few licks and things like
oh,
that.
he has done, yeah. Like he's played. I couldn't tell you offhand what albums He's turned up, but he's played so many. I mean, when I was out recording the EP with Pete, I done some backing vocals on his forthcoming album, and another album. And there's a lot of other, shall we say, alleged luminaries on it as well.
Yeah,
Who've done some great vocals on it. I won't name them. You'll see when it comes out, but it's a great surprise. So, and as I was saying, because I like pop music, I always like a good melody. I said, "Fuck it, pop stars." The last pop stars, I thought, yeah, I just thought that
it's a
was
great
great.
name. It's a
It's
great name.
like it's like a Sam Peckinpah movie.
Yeah,
If you ever seen The Wild Bunch,
yeah.
I recommend it to anybody. It's a 1974 blood and guts western. Everything's done in slow motion, and all the 1950s hard men
Yeah.
that were ever in hard men movies turn up in this, like Ernest Borgnine, Robert Ryan, William Holden, you name it, they're all in it. Warren Oates. So anyway, that's the long way around telling you the last pop star's name.
Right, yeah, class. But you're kind of very different sound to the Harveys, we'll say. Well, like, there's traces of obviously you can, as I said to you before, your own guitar playing the like I love the way like you've what would you call it? You've an immaculate kind of chug a chug. You've an immaculate palm muting technique.
Chuggy Chug would be the
Yeah.
correct
I
pronunciation,
don't mean
Noel,
that in
yeah.
a bad way. I mean that in an envious
No,
way.
no, no, you're
I could never
100%
get a
right.
guitar to be that, you know.
You're 100% right. And I ripped that off from Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
You listen to any of Johnny Cash's records. Chugga, 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 chugga. The guy with his original guitar player was Luther Perkins. He played a white Telecaster and never smiled and just would stand there in the suit. And that's where that chugga chug comes along. I mean, plus the
well,
fact
that's
it's
one of
the
the
only
things
way I
I'm
can.
most envious about because I'll tell you what, nobody really knows this. Maybe two people or three people who actually know this. When I was living in Dublin, we'll say back in the early 2000s, I was involved in martial arts, and one time my coach came back. We were having a party up at my place, and he came back fairly pissed, and he picked up a what he thought was a practice saber, which would be metal but would be blunted. And he goes to kind of go for me, as in a ha ha, but it was a real one he picked up. So I kind of deflected it with my left hand. And he did the correct thing martially. He pulled back so it would slash my hand, which it did. So I ended up in what do you call that hospital? Vincent's with 48 stitches,
No
plastic
way.
surgeon putting back nerves. So my index finger on my left hand is kind of numb from the middle joint down. And therefore, anytime I do play guitar, you'll hear kind of harmonics. Like some people thought I did it purposely, the what do you call it, fret harmonics and all that to come out of it. But it's actually done. It's due to nerve damage that was done in the hand years and years ago. So that's why when you hear me doing the palm muting, there's always a bit of a ring or something like that comes off some of the notes.
So you
So I'm always
because there's no
envious of
feeling
people.
in.
I'm always envious, and I'm always struggling to get the cure clean, and you're able to do it.
Yeah, but you look at your mom. What's the guitar player out of Black Sabbath? Tony Iommi, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they all worked in the steel mills in Sheffield,
Mm,
and I think Tommy Iommi, I think is his name, the long black curly hair. Anyway, he lost two of his fingers in a fucking machine accident.
yeah.
Okay, and he was a shit hot guitar player, so he made these metal tops to go on the stumps of his fingers, and that's how he gets his Black Sabbath sound. There's a bit of useless info for you.
That's the way. Well, I remember that time I was up in Vincent's and I had all the nurses around me the next day. This is a sword injury. This is really a sword injury. I think I'd arrived in a time machine or something. But yeah, that's the crack. But anyway, the last pop stars and your sound. So it's kind of you sent me on four songs, and I think that's Baby Lizard, The Answer, and They Told Us, and Are You a Terrorist? And for me, I'll ask you about each of them because they're kind of fascinating as well. For me, Baby Lizard on the fly screen, it's reminded me of all things, John Cooper Clarke and the cadence, the way he would kind of speak his poetry. So the start of that song, that's jumped into mind, John Cooper Clarke. And yeah, that was interesting song, interesting song. And great lyrics in it. Long, like you write a lot of lyrics. I do tend to be shorter. I do one verse and one chorus. I might repeat the verse. But anyway, the next song I was listening to, The Answer. It's a very dark song, darker than anything else I've heard you write. I'm talking about with the Harveys or with anything else. It's kind
Well,
of, you have lyrics in that. Every day we watch your misery, a howling wind blows in your face, or before you get old, don't you realize that you've been sold? There's a bitterness and there's a darkness in that song. So I won't
well,
run through them. What inspired that? Or what's that?
I'll explain that one. That's
Yeah.
that's about. I wrote those lyrics in about 10 minutes, and then I rewrote them and rewrote them and rewrote them. And on the day I was recording it, I was rewriting them in the studio, and it's basically about genocide,
Mm,
mainly Palestine, but genocide on a worldwide scale. Because not only is it about the genocide in Palestine, but also the killings in Syria.
yeah.
All the countries that we do trade with, China,
Don't
places
you
like
realize
that,
you've been sold?
Saudi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
and there
war is
was
a racket,
also
like your man. What was his name? General. Oh, your man escapes me the name. The lad who wrote War is a Racket, the most decorated soldier in American history, five-star general. And he wrote The War is a Racket. He was involved in everything from, I think, the 1890s, even from China to the Middle Americas. And as he said at the end of it, everything was Wall Street was calling them to, free up business in such and such a country and overthrow the regime,
well,
send in the American
I
army.
think, yeah, no, you're right. And every day I watch you on TV, we see like we're sitting at home. You have to think of this, Noel.
Yeah.
This is totally macabre what we're doing. We're fucking sitting at home watching genocide live on our fucking TV screens. And I can't stomach it anymore. And I've always had a not flying my own fucking flag, so to speak. I've always had a social conscience. I always believed in the underdog. I mean, if I think something's wrong, well, then I'm going to go and try and be
Yeah, you can
part
do
of the
that in one
people
of the
that.
next songs I was going to come to. Are you a terrorist? But go on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, and that also leads nicely along onto that song. But
Yeah.
purely that song is about what's happening people dying every day. The streets are no longer paved with gold. That's about immigration and people trying to get to a better life, and then they're getting all this fucking shit from the racist fucking knuckle draggers. People have a
Yeah.
right to march and protest, but fucking protest against the government
I was
who has
shocked. I
caused
have to
all of
say,
this.
I was shocked when I went into the poll booths this year and I saw, and I know I didn't get anywhere, but the fact that they were able to put it together and you have pages and pages of far right or independents of the same ilk, and the same
I
belief.
believe in
Even in
democracy.
mainstream politics, I won't mention the politician, but very famous and people see them as an alternative, and they're kind of saying about the Kulak says no stuff about the which is completely racist, and there was far right people involved in that. And they're kind of saying, oh, well, there's real issues here. People aren't being housed and all that. That's a separate issue. If government is applying
You see,
neoliberal politics and people are being shafted, there's no jobs and there's no housing, that is a completely different issue to people coming in from
oh no,
abroad.
you're
Because,
100% right.
I mean,
And with
economically, the fact is, economically, anytime you have migrants of any sort, whether they're economic or whether they're refugees, once they come into a space, they need more schools, they need more hospitals, they need more services, they need all of that. That creates work. That to build those schools,
in
to build
World
those
War,
houses, it builds the real economy, not the banking economy, but it builds the real economy everywhere, without exception. Is ever happens, it grows economies. Therefore, everybody's standard of living increases.
Mhm.
That is the net effect of when you have refugees or immigrants coming into a place. Your standard of living rises. So if that's not
Mhm.
happening, and people don't have jobs, they can't get on housing, there isn't any public housing built. That is not the fault of the guy who's coming in, who's never voted for these guys who are inflicting the policies of privatization upon the rest of us.
You see,
But
this is the danger, Noel, and you're correct in what you're saying.
yeah,
This is the danger, which is why I gave up social media almost 2 years ago. Best thing I ever fucking did, right?
yeah,
Because you've got people who spend their lives on fucking social media. And if anybody wants to do that in a positive way, that's fine. But they're using it to get their misinformation, right? Everybody has a right to protest, but it's how you protest and who you protest against. I've seen videos of people screaming at migrants saying, look at you with your Gucci fucking clothes and your smartphones. These guys were fucking dressed like tramps, right? And I also agree with people saying that they haven't been spoken to by the powers that be, saying that this is going to happen. We're moving people in. That's the government's fault.
yeah.
It's not the people who are getting moved in. They should be outside. If they want to fuck petrol bombs, let them go up the fucking Leinster House.
Well, that's like the classic Dead Kennedy's, riot. That's tonight. You need tomorrow. You're homeless tonight. It's a blast. It's always your own area that you fucking destroy instead
And
of
like Kulak,
never turn up. Like I don't see
unfortunately,
anybody turning up and saying, "All right, well, all of these masters of mankind, they live up in Costa del Torquay. Let's all go up there and fucking torch the place." And then there would be change.
I mean, the people of Kulak, their area, unfortunately,
Well,
there's
people are
not an
easily
awful
led.
lot of.
The truth
No,
is, and
hang on a
I hate
second.
to say it, I hate to say it,
No,
but the
hang on a
truth is,
second.
yeah,
No,
go on.
there's not an awful lot of infrastructure in Kulak,
Yeah.
and I agree with the fact that they should have been consulted if they were bringing in so many people into a place where there's not an awful lot going on. There's mass unemployment and poverty. So what would these people do if they were housed there? It's a stupid thing to do in the first place. But going and burning the fucking place to the ground is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's just, I mean, obviously there's issues around. There's a lot of issues, but there's side issues to the central fact. Like, I mean, I think the far right have basically linked in and said it's the refugees' fault, which it certainly isn't. And you kind of got government policies that are certainly privatizing things and, defunding healthcare and social housing is a joke. I really don't like using that word. I think it should be called public housing, like you have in other countries, like in Switzerland and in Denmark, for example, a lot of places, Copenhagen, you can't buy a house outright. You can only buy 70% of it. The other 30% is owned by the community. So therefore, it kind of contains house prices. So you don't get the craziness of Dublin. You look at Dublin, we did a video with March recently where I was kind of highlighting that issue. And it was kind of, if you think St. Bridget's Mansions which was let slide into absolute oblivion. And like at first it was a working class place. It was by the docks, and there was employment there. Once manufacturing was gone from this country, that place went into rapid decline, and it was starved of funding, etc. And then of course everyone was moved out from those areas into Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, and all that kind of stuff. While that area then became the North Inner City development. So you had, Priory Hall, isn't it Priory Hall or something like that? A few of those places, and
Yeah.
the O2 and all that became a highly developed, well serviced. Suddenly you had a Lewis. Them guys, there was never a Lewis down to St. Bridget's Mansions. There was never all of these employment opportunities or, high tech
I
companies.
don't
There's none of
understand.
that stuff
I
there.
don't. You
It
see, I
annoys
don't
me.
under. I don't understand why. You have the government going on about compulsory purchase orders of land, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You've got vast amounts of green fucking space outside of Dublin, as you and I know, and anybody with a brain cell knows. There's fucking thousands of fucking kilometers. Build a fucking town on it. Build a town here and there and develop the country, not just fucking put them in houses that are 100 years old and repaint them and decorate them.
Yeah,
Build a
yeah.
fucking another city or it's not
Ah, yeah, but
fucking
they
rocket.
won't do. Like, I mean,
So
I was in that game, as you know. I was an architect, and I did when I started off trying to learn the profession after college. I did work in the corporate sector in Dublin, right through the boom years. So I kind of had you know, an absolute I had an eyewitness account of what went on there. I have been in rooms with ministers. I have been in rooms with QSs, and I have been in rooms where people have said when the Part 5 came out and they were split. The idea was that you could mix a social mix. The idea was that you had to be fair to children. That if the Republic says that, all the children of the state have to be looked after, basically, right? So therefore, the kind of ethical question is, well, if you're going to put people into social housing units out in Ballymun, away from the town, with a bus that doesn't run on a Sunday, for example, the 36A used to run, because I lived in Ballymun in the early 90s, and Sundays there was no bus service. So if you were elderly or infirm, you were stuck there. So if you're going to do that new townism idea, right, you're basically condemning every child that's born there, who, no matter what you think, because the capitalists and the neoliberals will always put blame on the that's the thing, it's your fault for being poor. Poverty is a judgment as opposed to they abandon any kind of ideas around privilege or having, grown up with contacts in the Costa del Docky or anything like that. It's always the victim's fault. But whatever way you look at it, a child doesn't have agency, so you can't blame a child. But if you're going to inflict that upon them, then you're the bad guy. So the idea was, let's have a social mix. Let's make sure that social housing and private housing are mixed together. So you had a Part 5 where 20%, 10% would be affordable, 10% would be social. I've been at meetings were large. We're talking about the billionaire kind of developers of Ireland, and they'd kind of turn around and says, "We're not going to have them scum there. We've bought another site out in Rialto or out in wherever it is, and we'll offset our Part 5 responsibilities for this area in Dalkey we're developing, or this area in Blackrock we're developing. We'll offset that down into Rialto entirely, do a deal with the council." Which is totally against, the spirit of the laws, they would say. It wasn't brought in, they
well,
did that. And that's policy. That's government policy. That's Galway
well, I give you a good
politics.
one, right? As you know, I work in the homeless services in the inner city
Yeah.
and in the community. I must stress that, not state.
Mm,
And this is how fucking stupid the government are, or the planners. There's a row of houses in very good nick,
mm.
which are unoccupied, and planning permission is being sought to build, wait for this, a fucking amusement arcade with
Yeah.
slot machines and gambling machines.
Well,
I mean,
that's
that
right.
says
Like,
it all.
you're saying that to me, right? And if somebody's making money and somebody's selling the idea.
That says it all.
On the other hand, I remember, as I said, when I was in college doing architecture, I did my thesis on Ballymun and Fatima Mansions and Cabrini Green in Chicago. And the commonality of the problems of those places was you had no community. The reason you had no community because there were flats, and if people wanted to move out of them, you couldn't own a flat. You could own a council house, but you couldn't own a flat. So you might have the wildest council estate, but within 10 years, 15 years, it's calmed down. Everybody as a community is actually, settles down. But in the likes of Ballymun, the average tenure was 2.5 years, right? So people were in and out of the place, then they were trying to get a house in Darndale or whatever it was. Areas like that, you know, they're a bit of a joke. But when you look at the original Ballymun plan, if you go back to the 1963 plan, for example, the idea was to have an industrial park right up beside it, to have excellent communication, bus communication, etc., and eventually a rail communication into the city, to have a community centre, to have all of these things in place, right? And in the original plan, they built the towers, they built the flats, they built the police station, and they built the swimming pool. They had no community centre. They had no industrial park. They had no jobs or anything like that. And as I said, the bus service didn't exist on a Sunday. That's what the people were left with. That was a policy decision. It wasn't the design, it was the policy decision that happened afterwards to save some fucking, penny wise, pound foolish, or not giving a shit about people in
Headless
general.
chickens. That's what they are.
So I suppose getting back to the music.
That's the world all sorted out now.
It's the world started. So, and they told us, which is another one, about other side of the world and or another side of Irish society.
I'll
It's
be quick about this.
anti-religion because you have billion graves and they took the silver and they got the gold, which of course is Judas and betrayal, and they got the gold. You think
Yes.
about the Vatican, you
Well
think about
spotted.
all the wealth they have. Yeah, they're excellent lyrics, man. Like
Well
it's,
spotted. Look, basically, myself and a good buddy of mine were denounced from the pulpit in our local church,
mm.
which was a fucking major result because we turned up in boiler suits and stocking masks uh, to, to mass and safety pins,
Yeah.
uh, dressed as Devo, basically.
Yeah, what year was
One of my
that?
favorite bands. Yeah, and it was a fire. Apparently, I wasn't there, but apparently it was a fire and brimstone sermon. I won't mention the priest's name now. He's brown bread. So
It's a different time. I remember growing up in the 80s, the same thing. People would be down the back of the church, and you'd get the priest would
but
stop
this
doing,
is like
shite the fact that people are having a conversation, waiting for the pub to open down the back.
we had just got the Devo album. Are We Not Men? We Are Devo on red vinyl, which I still have,
Yeah.
and we listened to it, and that was it, along with the Ramones. So anyway, the song is basically about what they said. You're all going straight to hell. And when you crash and burn, only time will tell. Apparently, they were the words that were used. So we incorporated that into it. And then, you know, the billboard says that Jesus saves. It stands on top of a billion graves. It's just the hypocrisy and the bullshit that we were brainwashed to believe in. And that's what that's all about.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose you think about this country. So I suppose the younger brigades in the punk rock don't get this, as I said. Like I often talk to them, they've been shocked to realize that when I was a young adult, contraception was illegal and stuff like that. And if you go back further to '79, when you were up on the RT playing with the Shrews and all that, in 1979, 1 million people turned up and knocked to see the Pope of a population of 3 million. One in three people in Ireland came up to genuflect in front of, the Bishop of Rome.
And you fast forward to your man that came over. Don't even know what his name is. That's how interested I was in the current Pope. He was here 2 years ago.
I was like, I didn't even hear about it.
I think 100,000, if any, was in the
Yeah.
Phoenix Park, whereas John Paul, there was 1 million people.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say I was thrown out of the park.
There you go. There you go. So what's on for the last pop stars? Are you going to
Well,
release the CP or what's the crack or any
I'm
plans?
going to go into rehearsals with Paul,
Yeah.
because I opened for the Trouble. We opened for the Trouble Pilgrims, in the Grand Social there, the Alternative Sunday Social Club, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it went fairly well. I got up and sang Enemies with the Troubled Pilgrims. And so what we're going to do is me and Paul will get a set together and then rehearse the 4-track EP with Pete. And Pete will get up and play those 4 songs. We launch it sometime sooner rather than later, because as I was saying earlier, the Harveys are, to paraphrase a well-known organization, we haven't gone away, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're going to go into rehearsals after the picnic, primarily to make a new album, 10 tunes. Tunes are all written, and we
Are you
know them.
playing? Are you playing, or have you already played on the Alternative Sundays?
Oh
Social.
yeah, we were almost a house band when it was in Toners and the Wild Duck, and then there was a bit of a controversial incident where, shall we say, we didn't get asked back. I won't get into it. It's all water under the bridge.
We'll have Barry on in a few weeks anyway. So.
How are you? In fairness to Barry, he gets the punters in
Yeah,
and it's a brilliant idea, and it's a great session. And over on the north side now, in the Grand Social, downstairs in the ballroom, a great venue,
yeah,
and comfortably, yeah, I'd say comfortably, well over 100 people, maybe more.
yeah. I've never been in the downstairs. I was upstairs, as you know, because like you played it yourselves, the
Well,
Exploited.
you will be there because you're opening for Protex.
That's right, yeah,
Old
Mert.
buddies of mine.
Yeah,
What and
looking
what
forward
date
to
is
that.
that, Niall? Get the plug in?
The 6th of October, I believe.
6th of October, yeah. Couple of days before my 64th birthday, believe it or not.
All right, sure, we'll have to meet up for a few pints then.
Oh, I'll be in there that day, don't worry.
Excellent, excellent, man. And what else was I going to say? Any gigs coming up for you? Right, like that, where people can see.
Well, as I say, the Harveys, I think our first gig will be in the Alternative Social Club
Yeah,
sometime early in the new year.
yeah,
We're going to go in and record the album. Um, and if anything comes out of the last pop stars, well then you might see us around sooner rather than later.
yeah.
Other than that, I'm incognito.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. Any more songs? How are you doing with that? Like when them 4 songs, I think you had sent me an early version of Are You a Terrorist
Yeah.
in February or something.
Well, again, self-explanatory. I thought I've never heard anybody write a song asking those questions. Why do you do what you do? And that song is not pro-terrorism. It's the questions of, you know,
I'll tell you what it reminded me of, Bitsy. Maybe I should or shouldn't say it, but what it reminded me of was you've written a book, which of course you haven't published yet.
I
But
haven't.
you said, oh, you have? Or you
Oh
haven't?
no, I haven't.
Haven't, yeah, yeah.
Allegedly. No,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
yet.
yeah. Well, you got
Past
me a
the
copy of it.
past the
It was
past the point of rescue. Sometime.
well, as I said to you at the time, it was a fascinating, if nothing beyond, a personal story and all that kind of stuff. It was a fascinating kind of view of Ireland of the times and all the issues that were happening, especially, I suppose, the immigration issues and all that, but also the Republican issues, what was going on up in the north and how heated all that situation was. And I suppose when I heard, "Are you a terrorist?" Like I was like, yeah, it just reminded me of what you'd written, like of how do you see, terrorism versus freedom fighting when, there's atrocities going on by states and all that kind of stuff. So an interesting
You
question.
see,
A very daring, a
oh,
very brave question to present because you can be crucified
no,
for daring
no,
to
no,
ask.
and again, it wasn't on knocking down and terrorism. Things can happen that you don't condone, but you understand why they happened,
Yeah,
not condoning why they happened.
yeah.
If you kick a dog long enough, it's going to turn around one day and bite the fucking bollocks off you. And you can say that about Ireland's war against Britain,
Mm.
Palestine's war with Israel, Syria, Hezbollah, all the Middle East that is now a major fucking thing waiting to blow up. In World War II, the Jewish race was annihilated because they were blamed for Germany's economic woes when there was 12 million people on the dole, and they're blamed for everything. In the 21st century, it's going to be the migrant that's going to suffer big time in Europe. Mark my fucking words. That's the next big fucking conflict. It's fucking kicking off like that. I can't believe what's
Yeah, we
going
all
on.
see it, I think. We all kind of hope it's not the case, but there are a lot of right-wing governments now in Western
Look
Europe.
how close they came to being elected in France.
Yeah, and they're already
Only they
gone.
fucking it's just like what Fine Gael and Fianna Failure did when Sinn Féin beat the bollocks off them in the election. Can't have them in, we'll come together. And that's what saved France when the other parties came together to stop Le Pen getting the majority.
Yeah, and everybody had him written off 20 years ago.
The
All of a
climate, the
sudden.
climate right now, Noel, without wanting to be doom and gloomy, is pretty fucking grim
Yeah.
on the political front.
Yeah, it is, yeah. That's what I meant by when I hear leaders of, will say, what you would consider left-leaning parties almost apologize for clearly right-wing actions, and anti-immigrant actions and stuff like that. Like it's You can't concede. Like, as Oi Polly would say in one of their songs, they started off cleverly with some quotes from Mein Kampf and some quotes from Hitler and what he said. And he said that the only hope people had at stopping him was to come down on them as hard as possible when they started, because after that they hadn't a fucking hope we were going to take power. And that's the problem that I see.
All you need is the right political and economic climate and
And
the
we have
right
it here,
fucking
like, I'm
yeah,
sure
and the
I
right
think we
nut
talked about
jobs.
this. We talked about this about
Yeah.
when you were talking about social media. I remember back in the water protest times, you had a lot of people and they were kind of getting on board and they had this idea of socialism and left and, communities and community action and all that kind of stuff. And the amount of them, about half, close to half of those guys, befriend you on Facebook and all that. And you think, all right, these are some guys, they understand. And now you see them with Irish freedom parties and with far right groups and anti-immigrant statements on their social media, and you're kind of fucking shocked. You're kind of like, did you learn anything, or worse, did you understand anything? That's the despair I have. That you kind of go, listen, I thought you were intelligent, but clearly you fucking aren't.
It's like
Yeah,
and you see the the mad thing about it is I
yeah.
wonder what the people in more affluent communities what their views are. I'd fucking love to know
Well,
because
I can tell
the
you, it's
people in the
probably
world,
history repeats whatever makes the money. They think it's all a lot of joke, and they can already buy off politicians in any case. They do that, right? So, like any
mm,
business in group, and they'll set up their lobbies, and they'll go into government, and they'll get their friends to write up laws and present it to some politician who they're paying the party. They're funding that party. So they think that they can buy politics left, right, and center. The danger, and that's what they thought, that's what brought Hitler. It wasn't the working class that put Hitler in the power. It was the fact that the industrialists went, we're going to make a package of money when we're producing tanks and bombs and planes. This is the guy to
but
bring in.
12,
We're all going to be
but
millionaires.
12,
And then what happens is you realize you get someone like that who doesn't give a shit eventually when they
but
have
he
the
was
power.
also
And then
he
you're
was
in hell.
also
You know?
he was also, which is most important, he was a fucking rabid anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And that's all you fucking need in different parts of the fucking, especially in Europe, where, dictatorship and fascism is always being rampant in Spain and France.
Mhm.
They have the diehards, and you just need the political and economic climate and a fucking horse to whip, which is the migrant. And that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always easier to point the finger.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Make music, not war, folks.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been great talking to you, Bitsy.
Yeah, you
Good
too, Noel.
conversation. It's been great listening to those tunes, and I'll be playing a few more over the show. And listen, sure, I'll catch you soon, pal. All right.
I'll catch you at Protex.
Thanks, man. All right.
See ya. Take care,
Sound
man.